Hardware and software. Lofty goal. In this lesson, you will learn about computer hardware and software.
Computers help us to do our work with ease, whether it is solving a difficult mathematical puzzle or it is writing a poem. Computers can be simple and they can be complex, but they are made of two components, hardware and software.
Hardware. The physical parts of a computer are called hardware. You can see and touch all hardware parts. Hardware can be further classified as input device, processing device, and output device. Some hardware parts like keyboard, mouse, monitor, printer, speakers are visible outside the CPU box. Other hardware parts are present inside the CPU box like hard disk, CD drive, motherboard, SMPS, memory, etc. Hardware devices inside the CPU. CPU, hard disk, RAM, CD drive, SMPS, motherboard. Some more. SMPS, switched mode power supply, supplies power to all the devices present inside the computer. Hey Mighty, when I click on the Start button, all programs and many more names are displayed.
Good question. These are software installed in your computer.
Software. Software is a set of instructions that tells hardware what to do. It is shown on the desktop in the form of an icon. You can neither touch nor feel a software. Types of software. There are two types of software: application software, system software. Some more. You can create an icon on the desktop for any program you want. Application software. Application software programs are designed for specific purposes. Some commonly used application software are given below. Paint is a software used for drawing and coloring pictures. Adobe Photoshop is used for creating and editing pictures. MS Word is a word processor software used for writing and editing text. Windows Media Player is a software used for watching movies. System software. System software runs the application software. System software controls and manages your computer. When you start your computer, the first software to run is a system software called Operating System OS. Now, Windows 7 is the most popular operating system. Windows 8 is the latest operating system. Which one is correct?
Central Processing Unit, CPU, of a computer is a piece of hardware that carries out the instructions of a computer program. It performs the basic arithmetical, logical, and input-output operations of a computer system. The CPU is like the brains of the computer. Every instruction, no matter how simple, has to go through the CPU. So let's say you press the letter K on your keyboard and it appears on the screen. The CPU of your computer is what makes this possible. The CPU is sometimes also referred to as the Central Processor Unit, or processor for short. So when you are looking at the specifications of a computer at your local electronics store, it typically refers to the CPU as the processor. When we start to look at the various components of a CPU and how they function, remember that this is all about speed. When we use a computer, we want the instructions to be carried out very fast. As the instructions become more complicated, for example, creating a 3D animation or editing a video file, we demand more from the CPU. Thus, the technological advances we have seen in processor technology have largely been driven by the need for speed. A typical CPU has a number of components. The first is the Arithmetic Logic Unit, ALU, which performs simple arithmetic and logical operations. Second is the Control Unit, CU, which manages the various components of the computer. It reads and interprets instructions from memory and transforms them into a series of signals to activate other parts of the computer. The Control Unit calls upon the Arithmetic Logic Unit to perform the necessary calculations. Third is the cache, which serves as high-speed memory where instructions can be copied to and retrieved. Early CPUs consisted of many separate components, but since the 1970s, they have been constructed as a single integrated unit called a microprocessor. As such, a CPU is a specific type of microprocessor. The individual components of a CPU have become so integrated that you can't even recognize them from the outside. This CPU is about 2 inches by 2 inches in size. CPUs are located on the motherboard. Motherboards have a socket for this, which is specific for a certain type of processor. A CPU gets very hot and therefore needs its own cooling system in the form of a heatsink and/or fan. The ALU is where the calculations occur, but how do these calculations actually get carried out? To a computer, the world consists of zeros and ones. Inside a processor, we can store zeros and ones using transistors. These are microscopic switches that control the flow of electricity depending on whether the switch is on or off. So the transistor contains binary information, a 1 if a current passes through, and a 0 if a current does not pass through. Transistors are located on a very thin slice of silicon. A single silicon chip can contain thousands of transistors. A single CPU contains a large number of chips. Combined, these only cover about a square inch or so. In a modern CPU, however, that square inch can hold several 100 million transistors. The very latest high-end CPUs have over 1 billion. Calculations are performed by signals turning on or off, different combinations.
Today in this session we'll discuss about RAM and ROM memory and their differences. So let's get started. Let's first discuss RAM memory. Random access memory. So guys, do you know what does random access mean here? Random access means that CPU can directly access any address location of RAM memory. That is why it is named as random access memory, and it is very quickly accessible. RAM is a volatile memory. It stores the data till the power is switched on. Once the power goes off, the whole data in RAM gets erased, and it only stores data which has to be currently processed. The storage capacity of RAM is high, ranging from 64 MB to 16 GB. RAM is the fastest and costliest memory of the computer. Because of its speed, it is very expensive. Memory. Read-only memory. Unlike RAM, the ROM memory can't be directly accessed by CPU. The data first transferred to the RAM and then CPU can access that data from the RAM. ROM is a non-volatile memory. The data inside the ROM retains even if the power of the CPU is switched off. The capacity of ROM is comparatively smaller than RAM. It is slower and cheaper than RAM. The data in ROM can only be read by CPU. That's why it is said read-only. The data in ROM cannot be modified. ROM stores the instruction that computer requires during bootstrapping.
What is a hard disk drive? A hard disk drive is a data storage device that uses magnetic storage to store and retrieve digital information using one or more rigid, rapidly rotating disks coated with magnetic material. A video card or graphics card. A video card is a discrete, dedicated circuit board, silicon chip, and necessary cooling that provides 2D, 3D, and sometimes even general-purpose graphics processing calculations for a computer. Modern cards with integrated calculations for triangle setup, transformation, and lighting features for 3D applications are typically called